Well, the 2025 version of the Ohio State Buckeyes offense is going to look much different from what we became accustomed to in the 2024 season. They have to retool from the top to the bottom, and we get into all the positions here on this episode of the Buckeye Breakdown Podcast.
We've got the whole crew together as we cover Ohio State with our instant analysis from Ohio State.
There's something that doesn't feel right.
Unbelievable effort from him today. Is E.J. Liddell going to crack the first team All Big Ten?
I think he can be the guy. I'm not trying to start a quarterback controversy.
He seems to have the durability. He certainly has the toughness. This is the question on a lot of people's minds here. Welcome to Buckeye Breakdown.
Welcome in, everybody, to a feel-good Friday of the Buckeye Breakdown Podcast. Anthony Moeglin alongside my partner, Kevin Woidke, on a Valentine's Day Friday edition here as we're joining you this afternoon, breaking down this Ohio State offense here as we take a look at the 2025 offseason, because, Kevin, we became so accustomed, especially at the end of the year, to a well-oiled machine on the offensive side of the football. It took a handful of weeks for the Buckeyes to get there, but once they hit their stride, Will Howard, Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins, Jeremiah Smith, Emeka Egbuka, the offensive line became this well-oiled machine that was really, really tough to stop. And we saw the fruits of that throughout the college football playoff. But as every football season goes, every year goes, they got a lot to replace. And the Buckeyes certainly are going to have their hands full as they look forward into this 2025 season.
Yeah, I mean, who knows what this offseason holds. I mean, we're doing basically way too early top 25 with our with who we think is going to be, leading the Buckeyes as starters. But, the offseason takes a toll on you, and there's ups and downs. You never know what's coming. So it'll be interesting for sure to see what we have once the foot hits the ball in August.
Yeah, and I'd say that's a really good point that you make, because we're doing this here. It's February 14th, and I'd say this depth chart that we're about to talk through here is just basically the spring ball depth chart. With the way that college football is, there's a transfer portal window that opens up the day that spring ball ends. It's April 15th through the 23rd or something like that, and there's a week where guys can pretty much take inventory of what happened during spring ball, see where they're fitting, see maybe if there was a big catastrophic injury, or maybe a team coaching staff realizes that some of their guys aren't up to par, so they're going to go out and try to snag some transfers. But this roster that we're going to look at, while it is incredibly talented, it's a lot of guys that have very little experience. And I think, as I said in the open, it's not just one or two positions. It's top down, right, Kevin? We talked about this on our Monday show, that with all the coaching changes that had happened, it starts right there, as Brian Hartline's going to be leading the way on the offensive side of the football, and it feels like it's going to go back a couple years to when Ryan Day had his hand in the play calling. That him and Brian Hartline may be doing this thing, both, doing it together, calling this offense. And from my opinion, I'm curious to hear what you think. I don't anticipate there being much of a change in philosophy, much of a change in what we've become used to seeing in a Ryan Day coached team and a Ryan Day coached offense. Especially last year, Chip Kelly certainly had his touch on it, but I think that we're going to see a lot of the same things that we've become used to seeing over the past couple of years.
Yeah, and I think that Chip Kelly being here last year, giving Coach Day the ability to get comfortable in the role as head coach, because you're a game manager at that point. You got to make sure you're on the ball. You got to make sure you're figuring everything out, and having the trust that he had in Chip Kelly, that I'm assuming he has in Brian Hartline, to take it over and handle it when he's doing his duties of getting the special teams ready, getting the defense out there, watching the defense, giving the refs hell when there's no holding calls like it was all year. That's his job. That's part of his job description. He's not focused on a third of the game. He's on the entire aspect. He's managing everything. He's not just, and put it in a business sense, he's not just handling accounting. He's overseeing everything. He's the CEO. And that's what he's got to do. And I think that it'll be interesting. Like I said on Monday's show, it'll be some learning curves with Hartline in there at OC, and it's going to take a little bit to get used to, but we'll figure it out, and then we always do.
And I would also add too to that point, like, and I catch myself even thinking about it right now, like, yeah, Brian Hartline, as he is a new offensive coordinator for sure, but he's been a football coach for a very long time. He's been the wide receiver coach at Ohio State for a very, very long time. So I think that, yes, there will certainly be a learning curve, like you mentioned, but I think that, with the help of Ryan Day, with the help of just being there and having the experience of being in the horseshoe and hearing the same communication over the speakers and all that stuff, I think will prove dividends, as he's been a Buckeye coach for a very long time. But starting at the top there, obviously going to be some changes in the coaching staff, but the biggest change is going to be the change at the quarterback position. We're going to have a new signal caller heading into the 2025 season, as Will Howard was the new guy last year. Obviously did his job, goes down as one of the greatest Ohio State quarterbacks of all time. And now there's some massive shoes to fill. And frankly, Kev, whoever does take this job, whether it is Julian Sayin or whether it is Tavian St. Clair, the freshman, the 5-star freshman from Ohio, or whether it is a guy like Lincoln Keenholz who feels like he's been forgotten about, whoever takes this job has an opportunity to be the starter for the next 3 or 4 seasons, right? This isn't just a one and done situation. Like, these are all young guys who have a chance to grab a stranglehold of the quarterback position and make it theirs for the foreseeable future. And that's one hell of an opportunity for a bunch of these young kids.
Yeah, they, there's some really talented people. I mean, we saw a little bit of Lincoln in that Cotton Bowl, his true freshman year. I want to say he played like a quarter and a half, or maybe just the fourth quarter. There's a lot of hype about Travion St. Clair, an Ohio kid coming to Ohio. And then obviously we saw Julian Sayin. Everyone's seen that clip over and over and over again, him throwing the ball and how quickly it got out of his hands. Yeah. It'll just be interesting. I mean, you look at the ability physically, but you also got to look at the mental ability. It takes a lot to be a starting quarterback at Ohio State. It takes a lot of mentals. It takes a lot of toll on you. I mean, you're the guy. And that's like, one thing that I do remember about Joe Burrow is he was so smart. It drove me nuts. Like, sitting there in math class, paying attention the entire time, taking notes. He'd be playing Fun Run 2 on his phone, and then the midterm comes up, and I get a D, and he gets an A, and I'm like, what just happened? So, I mean, that just shows you how smart you got to be. And he didn't even – I mean, they went with Dwayne instead of him. He easily could have started here. Easily could have been great here, but – he went down to LSU and did his own thing. Everybody knows that. But that's the part that no one really understands. I mean, the mental fatigue that being a quarterback at this level, at this type of institution takes on you is crazy.
It's amazing. And like I said, whoever does get that job, will have their hands full. But I think that when you talk about Julian Sayin and you talk about Lincoln Keenholz, I think they learned from one of the best to do it, right? Will Howard, one of the things, he wasn't perfect all season, certainly would like a couple days back for sure. But in the biggest moments, he showed up for his team. And one of the things that always stuck out to me, he don't know me from Adam, but just being close to him in the post-game press conferences and listening to him talk and listening to him be around the team, he was mature beyond his years. And obviously he was a veteran guy. He had played 4 seasons in college football, and last year was his 5th. So he had seen a lot. And I think that those young guys, Julian Sayin and Lincoln Keenholz, could take a lot away from him. And then Tavian St. Clair was around the team during the playoffs. So I think hopefully a little bit of that veteran experience will rub off on some of those young guys. And just a reminder here, Devin Brown, we didn't say his name. If you forget about it or didn't know, he did transfer to the University of Cal. So he's no longer on the Ohio State roster. He's getting an opportunity to be a for sure starter for the Cal Bears. So good opportunity for him, but it creates an open position. And like I said, whoever does seize the opportunity sets themselves up for 3 or 4 years to be the guy at Ohio State. Julian Sayin, not many stats in his career. 5 of 12 last year for 84 yards and a score. Obviously, Lincoln Keenholt's got some action 2 years ago in that Cotton Bowl, and then St. Clair is the 5-star guy. He's huge, 6'5", and he looks the part, right? He looks like, when you see a guy who could be a difference maker, it looks like him. Now, Julian Sayin, in my opinion, not that this is good or bad. Obviously, I was a shorter quarterback myself, but he isn't as physically. He doesn't physically stand out as opposed to a guy like Tavian St. Clair or even a Will Howard does. Right? Julian stands a little bit shorter, but his arm is live. The ball jumps out of his arm. He's got all the arm talent in the world. And to your point, Kev, that's all for naught if you can't think it through, right? He's got to be there and be there mentally, and definitely there's no reason to think he can't be, but that's obviously part of the equation. And one of the things that was huge last year for Will Howard as he got his feet wet, and then not beyond getting his feet wet as he led the Buckeyes to the national title, was the fact that the offensive line did come through and play really, really good football down the stretch, even amidst a bunch of injuries. And I think, and we could talk to it here in a second, but those injuries may have actually been in the long run an okay thing, because it led to a lot of Buckeyes getting a lot of snaps that they wouldn't have gotten had they not gotten the opportunity. And this offensive line is going to be retooled on the outsides, but in the interior of it, it's going to be pretty familiar, Kev.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to see a lot of the same guys. You're going to see Carson Hinsman, who's kind of had an up and down excuse me, has had an up and down career with Ohio State. He had an okay starting center season, really took it into his own as the guard last year until Seth McLaughlin went down. But the reality situation is he's got to fix the snaps. I mean, he's got it. Will was phenomenal. People can go back and watch all they want. There were some bad snaps out of Carson that Will handled because he's a true quarterback and has been doing it for years, and I can't imagine he had perfect snaps every time at Kansas State. Maybe he did, but I don't know. I mean, that's just who he is, and he's got to fix that this offseason. He can be confident himself. He knows how to do everything after the snap. He can block well. He can call out protections well. He's got to get his snaps down. And then you go one step out to Double T and Luke Montgomery, or Austin Searfold. I mean, Austin played well. It turned into the Luke Montgomery show towards the end, but it seemed like Fry had all three of them on a very short leash and was just kind of pulling them and plugging as much as they could throughout the playoffs. It seemed like that's what they were doing.
Yeah. And Kev, let's pause there for just a real quick second, because I think that Luke Montgomery was the biggest beneficiary, him and Hinsman, obviously, but Montgomery to me was the biggest beneficiary of the injuries that happened last year, right? So let's talk it through. Josh Simmons goes out for the year in the Oregon game, right? That's a top 15 pick in the NFL draft, a bona fide stud on the outside. And that forces Donovan Jackson now to move from guard to tackle. And then it became Austin Searfold and Tegra there. But then as the season went on, they realized, hey, we got a dude in Luke Montgomery, and he played awesome, dude. And I'm not, obviously we're not going to sit here. You don't get many stats for you offensive linemen, which sucks. I wish we could get you guys some stats, but you watch the tape and you go and break it down. That kid is physical. He's smart. And by the end of the season, Kev, it looked like they were just choosing to run behind him. And that's huge for a guy who has, again, similar to that quarterback conversation, he's got a chance to be the guard for the Ohio State guard for the next 2-3 years. Like that was a huge end of the season for Luke Montgomery.
Well, yeah, I mean, Luke's got, I don't know if they burned his red shirt last year or not, because he played a little bit, not this past season, but the season before. I don't know if he's a true junior or red shirt junior. But I mean, yeah, I mean, he has a chance to do it. I mean, you have the Armstrong twins. I'm not sure if I think one's a tackle, one's a guard. I'm not 100% sure which way that goes. And then, you got some other people that are a little bit deeper. I mean, you could go all the way down to Toby Wilson. I don't know if he's coming back or not. I know he just got married. Congratulations, Toby. But I'm not sure if he's returning for his redshirt senior year or not. He's just a guy who could help grow the young guys. He can help lead the young guys. I mean, if you're not going to really have a senior or a fifth-year senior on that starting line that's been there since the get-go. I mean, that kind of transitions out to the tackles. Yeah. We have a transfer coming in. Ethan,
Onyanwa. We practiced it hard. Yep. To all the fans, we sat here for 5 minutes before we hit start and said, Onyanwa. So there we go. We could be wrong.
I mean, one of us did, one of us did. That's kind of what,
the other one was getting a D+ in math class with Joe Brown.
Exactly.
Quarterback lineman.
No, but I mean, Ethan's coming in. He's that red shirt senior transfer. He'll lead from example of being at and playing in a big time program like Rice. Very good group of 5 team. And then the other tackle will be Phillip Daniels, a redshirt sophomore from Minnesota, originally from Cincinnati, coming closer to home. I think he was the number 5 tackle on the 247 big board. I have no. It's just people tweeting that. Oh, tweet me for a better rating in transfers. I could go on a whole episode about that. Better rating in the portal.
We may have to. Hey, come June. Hey, remind us come June. We may have to do that.
Drives me nuts. No, don't. I'll say this right now. You cannot pay to get a better grade from a scouting guy who says he could get you up from a 3-star to a 4-star. No one can do that. Only coaches evaluate. So don't ever fall for that stupid trick. Anyway, pivoting back, the backup center is really kind of because we have 3 guards that can play. An Armstrong brother. Joshua Padilla might need to get called on. You saw it this year. We had to go deep in this offensive line. We're probably going to need to go deep next year. God forbid we do, but there's a lot of people that are going to need reps, and kind of to pivot off of that is the tight end. We lost our guy. We lost our guy. Heartbreaking. G. Scott is out. We got Will Kazimierek. I believe he's returning for his last year.
Yep.
We got Jelani Thurman, and then we got this new transfer, St. Xavier Jesuit. Shout out Jesuits. Max Clare. He's from Cincinnati, St. Xavier, Cincinnati. He went to Purdue, is one of the top tight ends in the country last year at Purdue, and was I don't know if he's one of the top tight ends in the country, but he was very talented.
Yeah.
And then was the top tight end in the portal, and he came to Ohio State, a school that doesn't normally utilize tight ends. So it'll be interesting to see how they fold him into the mix.
Totally.
We can get the weapon of the receivers, which we'll talk about at the end, the running backs, and then having, maybe, which we should have done last year because we had an unbelievable talent at tight end, but maybe utilizing it a little bit more with Max Clare. He sees what a program like Ohio State can do for your draft stock, and that's just a good example.
It's a really, really good point from you, because I think of it from 2 ways, right? At Purdue, solid season, right? 51 catches, 685 yards, 4 touchdowns. That's a good year, regardless of where you're at. That's a great year for a Purdue team that had 1 win on the season. So you take those numbers and then you transfer them over here to Ohio State, where you're going to have an opportunity to be on one of the better offenses in all of college football. Now, like we said, there's a lot of question marks, and when you're a young quarterback, right? It doesn't matter if you're I guess not even young. If you're a senior, junior, sophomore, whatever you are, tight ends are your best friend. We said it all the time, all year last year. I don't care, how veteran you are, if you're new or old or whatever it is, tight end is your best friend as a quarterback. And having a good one like Max Clare, I think, is going to be really important, as whoever it may be, Sayin, Keenhold, St. Clair, as they get their feet wet. It'll be great to have an outlet there at the tight end position. One of the things that stand out of those 3 transfers you talked about is size. Onyanwa, 6'6", 345. Daniels at right tackle, 6'5", 315. Claire, 6'4", 240. Like, those are big dudes, and that's really important. You made a good point, too, dude. You play 18 games to get to the top of the mountain. You're going to have injuries. This is an NFL season. You're going to have injuries. You said it on Monday. The key in spring ball here is to develop the Armstrong twins, develop the depth at the offensive line position, because it's inevitable. Someone's going to get hurt, and you're going to have to dive deep into it. We're going to stick on the lineman topic. We're going to give you 2 more minutes here, Kev, because I have a specific question. I don't know if you've ever gone through, or at Ohio State, if you went through a coaching change at the offensive line position, but Ohio State, Josh Fry leaves for the Arizona Cardinals, and Tyler Bowen comes in as the new offensive line coach for the Buckeyes. What's that transition like for a guy, for an offensive line, for a young guy, an old guy? How does that all go from your experience?
Yeah, so my freshman year, Ed Warner was there, and then moved to tight ends, and they brought in Stud. It went great for me. Stud liked me. Don't know why, but he did. And I was very, very happy to get out from under Coach Warner. He was not my favorite coach, but that's just but the thing is, everyone's got a clean slate. I was a walk-on who Coach Warner just saw as some throwaway walk-on, but then Stud came in and everybody was on an even playing field. He's like, I don't care if you're walking, I don't care if you're a scholarship kid. Whoever's the best 5 players are going to be playing. And that's something else to look at, because a lot of these websites, 11 Warriors, 247, they don't take one look at walk-ons. But there's been, and not saying that there's a lot. I'm not going to sit here and tell you there's a ton of great walk-ons, but like, just thinking about it, I mean, just the one I pops top of my head, Jack Conklin.
Yeah.
He came in as a walk-on freshman and was starting his sophomore year. I don't know if we have one of those on the team. I need to do a better job of keeping up on the walk-ons, but like, that's the reality of the situation is when you have a new coach come in, whoever is the best players will play. I went from nothing to 2 deep my sophomore year. If I don't break my wrist, I stay at the 2 deep. I had a club on it. There's some pictures of it somewhere. But it was me and Evan Lyle were listed on the depth chart as the 2 deep tackle. Like it was Isaiah Prince at the right tackle, and then me and Evan Lyle at left tackle. And that's just how it was listed on the depth chart. And I would never in a million years, I think when I walked on, I would be on a depth chart that team prepare for. I laugh thinking about some random GA having to prepare for me.
They're trying to spell your name. Like, they're looking at your name. Like, how do you even pronounce this thing?
They're pulling my huddle highlights. Like, how is this guy? Like, it's a whole different conversation. But that's something, everything's a clean slate. You're going to have to impress. And the first impression is going to be this offseason workout program. It's going to be mat drills, which is where they'll also be evaluating the quarterbacks, because that's all competition. It's all competitive. It's tires, it's tug of war, it's bone dummy, and it's just going. I mean, you start by running like 18 laps, and then you jump into it, and then it's just craziness. I mean, you're dead. People are getting sent back left and right. Coach Mick is blowing his whistle, blowing the air horn. Everything's going every which way. And it's craziness for the point of craziness. We got to focus in on what your job descriptions are during that time.
It's dude, you make a really good point. I got to stop giving you so much damn credit here, but you're on fire tonight, because I think one of the things that gets lost in a coaching change, and certainly for people who have never experienced it, weren't ever in a locker room when it happened, is the relationship part of it is real. Like, you can't underestimate the fact that, especially in an offensive line room, in a quarterback room, in a receiver room, like, that's your guy that you're with 24/7. That's the coach who's texting you to make sure you go to study hall. That's the coach who's texting you to make sure you're awake for workouts. Like, that person is with you at all times. And you can develop either great relationships with that person or a horrible relationship with that person. I've had my fair share of both, and it really does. And I hate to say it, but the reality of the situation is that it does play a role, and it does play a factor for some of the guys who maybe didn't see eye to eye with Coach Fry, they get a clean shot. For the guys who did see eye to eye, they also get a clean slate, and they have to bring themselves back down. Like, hey, I got to go re-earn this. All your starters, I got to go re-earn this thing. And it certainly sets up for great competition. It sets up for awesome development, especially in this spring ball period where everyone's trying to reprove themselves to kind of prove their mettle, prove their worth. So a lot of good stuff coming from that offensive line conversation. I think it's got the tools to be, and it's got the ingredients to be a really good group. They just got to come together and do so really before the playoff happens. So they got time. But in the backfield is where Ohio State, I think, is going to have their biggest both quarterback and running back, but I think it's going to be the biggest question mark. I shouldn't say that because I wrote biggest question mark above on the offensive line stuff. But replacing Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins is going to be a challenge. Those are two of the best running backs. We had the best running back group in all of college football last year. They're going to lean on one incumbent, one Buckeye to do so, and then we're going to hit the transfer portal for the other. James Peoples is a name that people are very familiar with. He had a couple touchdowns last season, had 49 carries for just south of 200 yards, finished with 197 and 2 scores. And then the outside guy, transferring in from West Virginia, C.J. Donaldson. Last year, carried the ball 163 times for 734 yards and 11 scores. On his career, finished with 421 yards and 421 carries for 2,058 yards and 30 touchdowns for the Mountaineers. So you're going to look at two guys. One has some experience, Kevin, just running the rock. The other has experience being an Ohio State Buckeye, but he hasn't really toted it as much. I think it's going to be a really important room for somebody to step up and take control of it and be that bell cow that Ohio State's had in Travion Henderson the past couple seasons.
Yeah, I mean, if you play NCAA 25, you're no stranger to C.J. Donaldson. He's a baller on the game. They gave him a lot of credit. I mean, he's a player. Mm-hmm. He's got over almost 3,000 career yards. Is that what you said? Close to that?
Close to it. Yep, 2,050. Yeah. I'm sure he's got a bunch of receiving yards. I didn't check his receiving stats, which is bad by me.
But that's just. That's leadership. That's experience you need. And then you have James Peoples, who showed glimpses last year, but was overshadowed by the two-headed monster. He's really good. We had a running back hit the portal, but is now out of the portal. Can't think of his name. I know it was 3 names. But that's something like C.J. Donaldson is someone who's coming in with something to prove too. Like, he didn't win a national championship last year. He's coming to Ohio State to try to bolster his draft credit so he gets picked up when the draft comes around. So he's going to be playing with his hair on fire, trying to prove himself. Mm-hmm. No one else is going to be complacent. I don't think people are going to be complacent this year, but think about it. Like, of the starters we've mentioned so far, Tegra, Hinsman are the only 2 that started in the national championship game.
Yeah.
Luke Montgomery might have started. I'm not 100% sure if he did or if Austin did. But, that's it so far that we've mentioned. We haven't gotten to, the heavy hitters at the end of the show yet. But
still, even to that point, it's just Jeremiah who is the starter, right? Like, Jeremiah and Carnell. So you got 5 guys max. That's on the – don't even get us started on the defensive side of the ball. That's on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, those are a lot of people that are going to be hungry and not be complacent. At least I really hope they aren't, because that'll be a real big problem if they are. Yeah. It's really good. It's going to be a huge room for Ohio State. The offense every year, especially last year, right? And we're going to get a little change back to more of the Ryan Day style offense, but it always starts on the run. They never pass to run. They run the ball, establish the run to open up the airways. And it's going to be really important to find that guy. The name that was slipping your mind, Sam Williams-Dixon, was the one who went from the portal to come back to Ohio State. So just add that name to the list. And the running back room, equally important. That conversation about injuries and longevity in a season that's so long is going to be important all around this team. And developing that depth is going to be paramount for Ohio State at all levels, but especially in that running back room because it is so important. And maybe, you go from a year where 2 guys rush for 1,000 yards. Maybe you go to a year where 4 guys rush for 500, right? Where it's more of that running back by committee. That certainly will flesh itself out. The last position group, a group we don't have to spend a bunch of time on. This is the one that's going to look very familiar. It's going to be led by Jeremiah Smith on the outside. And then Carnell Tate is going to finally get his opportunity to be, it's funny, the second best receiver on this team because Jeremiah is that crazy. And then Brandon Ennis will get his chance to be that number 3 guy. And Jeremiah Smith, I think we start there. Just a joke, just looking at his stats again, 76 catches, 1,315 yards, 15 touchdowns on the season for a kid who turned 19 midway through the season was out of control, man. And the fact that he would be a top 5 pick in this year's NFL draft says a lot. But the fact we get him for at least, hopefully, a couple more years is awesome. He's going to be leading the way for the Buckeyes on the outside.
Yeah, I mean, you made the point. Carnell Tate is going to be the second best receiver, but let's be honest, they're going to try to eliminate Jeremiah Smith in every capacity. Like, he will be the number 1. He will get his catches. They'll have to figure out ways to get him open because he's running the risk of the Devonta Smith where he's going to need that. That's where Carnell and Ennis are going to need to step up because if they don't play well, if they don't dominate like we know they will and should, then it'll be a lot easier for teams to just bracket cover Jeremiah and be like, all right, we don't got to worry about anything else. But like the reality situation is you want Jeremiah to still be open. You got to have your Jalen Waddles. You got to have your Henry Ruggses that are just that are people that are out there to draw attention as well. Because if you leave Carnell Tate or Brandon Ennis on one-on-one coverage,
good luck.
Look out. Like, I don't even know. Like, we got kids. I mean, and then you got the freshman coming in. What's his name? Quincy. Porter. Quincy Porter. He's a freshman who's coming in. I think he was top 5 receiver in his class. Like, there's another one who's going to add depth. And it's unreal how deep our receiving room is impressive. And then it's how good they are at being that deep. Like it's crazy.
And it's been that way for years. You think back to the years where it was Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave that transferred to Marvin Harrison and Emeka Egbuka, which transferred to Jeremiah Smith and Emeka. And now it's Jeremiah and Carnell. Like everyone you said there is a first-round pick. Carnell Tate's a 5-star receiver. Brandon Ennis is a 5-star receiver. We saw some evidence of it in the national title game and even in the entire playoff run. When you talk about, hey, you want to go one-on-one with Brandon Ennis, he'll sauce you up like quick, easy, like that. I think of the third down catch he had against Notre Dame where he was number 3 in the formation, gets out on what's a sail or a corner route towards the sidelines. He broke his guy off and was 15 yards open. Like it is amazing. And that's your third option. And obviously, Jeremiah, they're going to try to take him away. He'll still get his kind of throughout the season. So, this offense, as it always does, starts on the run game, but if you do establish the run and get it going, you can take the top off and really blow teams out thanks to this wide receiver group, which again, it sounds like a broken record, is going to be probably one of the best groups in all of college football. So that'll be a lot of fun as it if it stays that way, right? We set it out the front. This is the depth chart going into spring ball, right? Spring ball is in a couple weeks here. A lot can change. You hope that no injuries happen, but this transfer portal window is going to be big. And if some kid gets an opportunity to come to Ohio State, you be hard pressed to say that he wouldn't, So this roster, when that ball does get kicked off in August, potentially could look a little bit different, or could look exactly like what we just talked about. You never know. Time's going to tell. So, Kev, let's get out of here on this. Any Valentine's Day plans for you, or are you going to be playing video games all night long?
No, I got some plans. Unfortunately, I will not be celebrating Valentine's Day with my girlfriend. We're long distance, but I'm going to take my little sister and her friend out to dinner. Wow. It'll be fun. It'll be a good time. It's just this holiday.
That's what I wanted. Hey, that's what I wanted to hear.
This holiday. It started the holiday.
It's awesome.
You got David Yerman, you got roses, you got everything under the sun. You're like, what is going on? And it's gotten crazy, but here we are. We all do it anyway. And it'll be fun. What about you, Anthony? Anything fun?
Getting sushi tonight. We're going getting some sushi tonight. I'm a big sushi fan. The girlfriend is a big fan of the sushi. And if you're watching this right now and you forgot about Valentine's Day, make sure you go on your way home, pick up some flowers, say that you waited for it. If you need help making up an excuse as to why, just drop a comment in there and I'll hit you up and we'll workshop it.
We'll be fine. Yeah, it'll be good.
It'll be all good. It'll be all good. Well, we appreciate everybody jumping in, hanging out with us tonight. If you haven't, head over to our website, si.com/college/Ohio State. Bunch of content there covering all things Buckeyes, from Ohio State basketball to the women's basketball team, who's one of the best in the country, to all the offseason news. So go head over there. Got a bunch of stories up there for you. If you're watching on YouTube, thanks so much. Hit that subscribe button. If you're watching on X, jump over to that YouTube channel, hit subscribe. Make sure you're following all around. We're going to have you covered all off season long as we get set for what's going to be an exciting year in 2025, but we have so much time before then. So appreciate you jumping in and hanging out with us. For my partner, Kevin Woidke, I'm Anthony Moeglin, signing off from the Buckeye Breakdown Podcast.